the first presentation, so thank you for coming back, and a few new people as well. So you are attending Rozier-Audubon Days here at the museum, so we thank you for coming, and we thank Audubon Restaurant for sponsoring this two-day event for us. So it's a very nice event. So we have a whole lineup today, and our next guest, we got a threesome lined up here for you, and you know, birds is the kind of the thing that holds this whole presentation of the day together. So we're going to talk to Jared Nance, Refugee Manager of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, John Carroll, former Missouri State Parks Director, Director of Tower Grove Park, East Ozarks Audubon Society member, and Mary Elise Okenfoos, East Ozarks Audubon Society member and volunteer. So I gather you're going to talk about bird habitats and stuff that we should be doing for our environment.
Exactly.
So take it away. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Like I said, my name is Jared Nance. I'm the manager for the Middle Mississippi River National Wildlife Refuge. So that's basically both sides of the river, everything south of the confluence of the Missouri to the confluence of the Ohio. Part of my other duties is also have Clarence Canyon National Wildlife Refuge and Great River National Wildlife Refuge, both north of St. Louis all the way up to the Iowa border, and again on both sides of the river. So today we're going to be mainly focused on Middle Miss and our presence here and reason why we're here. John's going to go through a lot of some background and kind of build up, and then I'm going to take over and talk about the path moving forward for us and how you all may help, how you may be interested, and what you can get out of it, being the public and visiting our refuges. So go ahead. Take over whenever you want to take over, by the way. There's a whole lot of diverse topography. So, this stretch of the river, it's a transition zone from the lower alluvium valley of the Gulf of Mexico, transitioning up into the more, what you would picture Iowa and Illinois. So we're sitting in the middle of a transition zone. So we get species from the south and species from the north. So our species count for both, trees, wildlife, herbaceous layers is much greater than if you go 100 miles south or 100 miles north. And then and this is talking about the topography. We got the hills coming in. You got the alluvial plain of the Mississippi River. So a lot of stuff going on in this part of the world. John.
Well, thank you, Jared. This is to illustrate that the idea of a bird refuge or sanctuary is not new. In fact, in town here, it goes back, Bob Mueller, who you'll hear from later today, found that there was a refuge and sanctuary for birds at the cemetery, the old cemetery, as early as the 1930s. So I think that's kind of a nice piece of background to have. There's always been an appreciation for it. I think our previous speaker, Mr. Duncan, mentioned something very important. We happen to be located here in St. Genevieve on one of the great wildlife corridors in the world, the Mississippi Flyway. And this is a man who has responsibility for taking care of the wildlife in the middle of the Mississippi Flyway. And we have to remember that when Audubon was here, this wildlife was a paradise. And it had a lot of species that we'll never see again. It had Carolina parakeets. It had passenger pigeons. It had ivory-billed woodpeckers. You don't believe me? Read the Audubon journals. It had whooping cranes. It had sandhill cranes. There were buffaloes living in this area. There were elk living in this area. Now, we've still got a rich wildlife heritage, but fortunately for our country, we've established one of the finest systems of public lands in the world. People are familiar with our National Park Service lands, the national parks. They're familiar pretty much with our national forest run by the United States Forest Service. One of the things that's less known is the system of national wildlife refuges that we have. And we're fortunate that we have the Middle Mississippi adjacent to us, and how we got connected to them is part of the story that we want to tell today. So, yep. And it starts with bad stuff. Because the proximity to the river is good and enriches an asset. There would be no St. Genevieve if we didn't have the transportation corridor, the rich soil left on the floodplain by the river, and the proximity to the lead resources and other mineral resources on the interior. But that darn river can get out of its banks once in a while. And some of you may recall this flood, but I'm sure everybody here can remember this flood. And this is the flood that led to our being here today. The 93 flood was, Vern, do you know anything about that? It had a big effect. And one of the things that came out, we don't want to take everybody's time. I didn't get any lunch. I think some of us might want to get some lunch before the next program. But the flood created all kinds of stuff. But one of the things that came out of it was the congressional, federal, national attention that led to our beautiful levee. And that came out of the 93 flood. Well, that flood, the levee program, it's a big deal. It cost $50 million. I imagine it would be more today. One of the phases of that project, there was that phase, and then they were going to fix up Gabourey Creek North and Gabourey Creek South. The phase 4 was to bring the river closer to the people in a good way, make it accessible for recreation. There was a whole recreation plan in the original levee project. And guess what? The Corps of Engineers got to phase 1, and then they started getting low on money. And then by the time they got to phase 4, they were out of money. And they came, I was there, they came to the Board of Aldermen and said, well, we'd like to do phase 4, but we don't have any funds. If the city wants to raise money, the city had been setting aside some money. The city had bought a lot of property. That's part of, with the 3rd levee district, it helped to build the levee. But they didn't have the money to make the trail along the top of the levee, and they didn't have, there was going to be benches and all kinds of nice stuff. Well, they didn't have the money. The city had a little bit of money. When they said it would cost $2 million for the city of St. Genevieve to build phase 4, and they would be building it, the Board of Aldermen had no interest in that, no ability to fund that. So a committee formed. It was led by Sandra Cabot. Is Sandra here?
I haven't seen her.
Sandra Cabot was at that time the director of tourism for St. Genevieve. And she says, well, this thing is good. The phase 4 was going to be good for recreation. It was going to be good for the environment, but it was also going to be good for our economy, because it was going to be people, when they come to visit St. Genevieve, they want to see the river. And where are they going to see it? The places that we have now to go see it are not all that impressive. They could be dressed up some, and we're working on that. But we didn't have a place that was really user-friendly and attractive to show people. So she formed a committee, and we had the mayor on it, and we had the city manager, and Bob Mueller, and there was a guy from Conservation Department. And then we hooked in with some guys from the Fish and Wildlife Service. It turned out they were very cooperative. They were very helpful. This Middle Mississippi, don't get the impression that it's one long continuous string of land. It's not. It's just a couple of pieces of land during that whole stretch from the Missouri down to the Ohio. And there's none in St. Genevieve. not in St. Genevieve County. There's one that's close here, but that's actually in Illinois. That's the Kaskaskia Island. This one is on our side of the river, but that's in Illinois. There's one up here, that's in Jefferson County. There's one down here, and part of that is in Missouri. It's in Perry County. And then these are all in Randolph County, Illinois. Well, that's okay. This is Jackson County, Illinois. But we felt like we were kind of left out of the refuge, and yet we had this beautiful levee, and we had this plan that the Corps had prepared. What are we going to do to connect St. Genevieve to its recreational potential, and how can we connect to this beautiful wildlife refuge? So,
Thank you, Bob. Go back one.
Sure.
So I just want to give an overview. So this is what we currently have for the most part. This is what we started with, 93-ish to 95, 6 when we acquired most of this ground. The green is what we currently own, Fish and Wildlife. The yellow was our acquisition boundary. And this dotted line I'm going to get to in a minute, but that is what our current acquisition boundary is now. So you can go
Forward?
yeah, and we have 7 divisions. They're listed right there. We talked about that. We can go there. We talked about this. Are we going backwards?
Oh, I'm on the wrong. I'll move my little cursor over.
So talking about the vision of the project a little bit more. John mentioned a lot of this, but provide habitat for wildlife, let everyone experience nature. Fish and Wildlife, us, U.S. Fish and Wildlife have a presence in this area. Economical development, personal enjoyment, basically get outside and enjoy nature. And you can read the goals. I don't have to, we talked about most of those. So this was some of the early efforts that was talked about. This was just prior to my arrival, and what was talking about, Sandra and that group was talking about some of the, like observation decks and parking lots, and this was just flat gates, and this was just an early design that my predecessor had helped with, coming up with ideas. Tree plantings was part of that too. So this is everything levee protected on the city property, basically from the burn pile to the levee. If you go out there now, a lot of it, that former ag land, was the low parts especially, was planted in trees. Most of them, we didn't have a great survival coming first, but now it's starting to, they're getting bigger, surviving better. We've had issues with it, but trees are coming along now, and I tell everybody, it's like we're in the forever business. So, we may not get to enjoy it, but our kids are going to get to enjoy, nice big trees and walking through the woods down there. So, in 2019, Fish and Wildlife formally did a partnership with the city and the levee district, and it basically opened up a lot more opportunities for Fish and Wildlife to help out. So I take care of the tree plantings, mow around them. That's the best stand of cottonwoods came in you could ever imagine in that tree planting. So I'm having to beat them back, for lack of a better word, so the oak and the pecans can actually have a chance to grow. Eventually it'll all get let go and nature will take its course, but we're just trying to give some of the more preferred trees a better chance. And like I said, y'all can, I'm assuming, read all of that up there. So that got established. In 2020, the city did a parking area. We bought signage so if you've been down there, there's a kiosk. There's at the parking lot the city put in. This is a better map of it. So the green is where the Stormy Crawford Way parking area. The green's where the trees were planted. These are some trails that's out there currently now. They're mainly the old farm access roads, but still walkable. There's signage up on top of the levee, 4 of them, which I'm going to go through here in a second. This is the kiosk that's down there. And as long as people don't quit stealing the signs, it'll be down there forever, hopefully.
And somebody wanted the John James Audubon
There you
sign
go.
desperately.
So-
It's been replaced. I'm not staring at you.
If you see it in somebody's garage, let me know. Go ahead.
But I think it was the levee board, wasn't it, that cleaned out around there recently? It's all cleaned up. It looks very nice. The grass has been mowed and
Yeah, so they take care of the
Re-gravelled.
grass. They have gravel. Most time there's a trash can down there so people can throw their stuff away. And I see people down there walking quite often. This is just blown up about the sign. So this is one of the guys we're talking about today. Just giving a little brief history of St. John. Talking about the urban levee that Vern was such a big part of. Little history on that. Like I said, you want to read more about it, feel free to go walk the trails down there and look at it. This is talking about the partners and the regulations, no four-wheelers, no hunting, fishing, whatever. And this is just talking about some of the highlights, where the trails are, where signage is, that sort of thing. And this is an example of one of the signs that's up on top, the levee top, as you're walking.
And this is one of the really important features about this Middle Mississippi Wildlife Refuge, is to provide more habitat for migratory birds, for example, coming through. I'm on the bird banding team at World Bird Sanctuary. Last year, in an area about the size of a small city block in West County of St. Louis, we banded over 1,300 birds passing through. So they're passing through here too. They go winter south, and they have their nesting grounds north, and they're passing by every spring and fall. And it's really important to make this refuge area more inviting.
Yeah, and I wish I'd added a slide on here, but they have heat maps. So basically, the brighter the color, the more animals you have in an area. And from St. Louis to Cairo is the glowingest part for the whole United States. So the most bird numbers, the most diversity is literally right here. We're right in the middle of it. Another one, and you can see where, it's not a great map, but it does show where we're located.
I found something interesting. Yesterday was the first day that the bird banding team banded for the spring migration, and they recaptured a white-throated sparrow that they had banded last year. It had made its trip up and down, and it was back in the same spot again.
Did you find grosbeaks?
Sometimes.
Yes.
I've been bitten by
How do you catch them?
We have mist nets that they don't see, and they fly into it, and then we remove them from the nets.
Another example of one of the signs that's out there on the levee for people to read. Go ahead. Another one as well.
How long is the trail?
Ooh.
Well, it depends on which. There is no definable trail, so it depends on how you want to meander through the woods.
Okay.
Yes. I mean, the levee top is a trail, so it's gravel, easy walking. Then if you go down and take the farm access road, currently it's probably several hundred yards long.
For example, this morning we just slowly meandered through, and we were about an hour and a half, just soaking it all in.
one of the big goals, though, is to make it more accessible to more people. We love walking around in the woods, but we need a path that can take people from their parking area to the river. And if we do that, I think they'll get a lot more use. They're already using the levee itself, but to get them outside the levee, between the levee and the river, we're going to need to do some kind of a path. We don't want a major road, by the way, Jared.
No, just a path.
Want a path. That,
Just an area where the flotsam has been cut away, that you don't have to trip over logs to get along the line.
So here's just a picture of the parking lot with the signage. This is when we dedicated it, so August of 2020. World Bird Sanctuary was here. Fun fact, I believe it was this eagle was captured as a baby up at Clarence Canyon National Wildlife Refuge. I forgot what year it was. It's an old eagle now, and they're still showing it. It fell out of the nest during a storm.
Now, most of you don't remember Stormy Crawford, don't you?
Yes.
He's
Go
the
back.
founder of this World Bird Sanctuary that Mary Elise works at. And his son was at this,
That's his son, Brian.
and we named that a part of the road that's an extension of Division Street. It goes past the burn pile and the airport and Stormy Crawford Way. And his family really appreciated that, and I think it's very appropriate. He was all about birds, and the refuge is about, well, it's about more than birds, but it's certainly about birds.
And you have former Mayor Paul and Sandra, who we talked about earlier in that picture.
And the rest of the people, and you're on there.
Well,
And then the World Bird Sanctuary was very impressed with it being Stormy Crawford Way, and they brought their handlers with all the eagles.
examples, and did you take these pictures? Or
I think so.
of doing walks and exploring out there. Some more pictures.
East Ozarks Audubon, by the way, they're out of Farmington, and they're very nice. They've been supportive of this, and when Jared needed authorization to expand the refuge so that it could include this kind of acreage, he needed citizen letters, and they generated a whole lot of letters, I think.
Thousands of letters.
We did this similar presentation to one of their meetings, and that's when the letters came.
Yeah, I'm going to get to some of that here in just a second. I'm going to get to some of that right now. This part of it does involve St. John, but it's a lot bigger area as well. So in 2004, 22 state, federal, and non-governmental entities got together, developed a group. It's called the Middle Mississippi River Partnership. To highlight this area, what can we do to better this part of the world? So fast forward a few years to 2008, the Middle Mississippi River Regional Plan was authorized through the partnership. So we're going to start, as with anything, it takes a while to get legs and get going and get moving. And with that many groups of people, it takes longer than it should. That was in 2008 when we was authorized to start a plan. It took 10 years to 2018 to start developing a landscape conservation design. So, and then a year later, the Refuge, me, and two other people initiated the land protection strategy, which is this book. So basically, this is us highlighting, and I got examples if you ever want to stop by my office and you have trouble falling asleep at night. You could read that. So developed that, wrote that. This is all leading to a boundary expansion. It kind of didn't start off with that. In August of 2022, we did public scoping. So I had public meetings throughout the region, talking to people, and that's what the Eastern Audubon public letter writing campaign. In December of 22, the draft landscape protection plan and EA for the Middle Miss boundary expansion, the official draft was released. Went through another round of public meetings in February of 23, and then in September of 23. That document was finalized, signed by the Secretary of the Interior, the Director of Fish and Wildlife, didn't go to the Secretary, basically approving a boundary expansion. So previously, we could only acquire lands in these polygons that was developed in the early 90s. Now we have potential to purchase ground inside this dotted line. So it's basically a ridge to ridge and confluence to confluence approach. It's not quite that because you can't make a line along the ridge. You have to use a road and a railroad and a levee top. But it's basically a ridge-to-ridge concept. And inside of that, we can buy up to 90,000 acres. That's a lot of acres and a lot of money. And basically, we did this knowing that in my lifetime, this is never going to even get close. But we can slowly chip away at it. And basically did all the groundwork. I laid all the groundwork to my predecessor and their predecessor, and it keeps on. We'll slowly chip away, and then going back to the forever business. You know, as property comes available, it may only come available once every 200 years, but maybe we're there to buy it. We're going to focus mainly, our priority areas are going to be the batcher ground, so inside the levees, because we don't compete with farmers very well. I mean, we can't afford it for the most part. It's a lot higher priced ground. You know, good corn ground it's just not. But we want to be there if someone wants to donate or wants to sell or wants to, you know, hates their kids and wants us to have it. We'll be there, basically.
You want to say what's happening here in St. Genevieve?
Well, I was going to get to that.
Okay, sorry.
So the last thing I'll say with that was we had, I believe, if I remember right, going back to the public meetings and the scoping, we had over 8,000 comments from the public on this, and all but one was positive. So, I mean, it was amazing, basically. That just doesn't happen in anything government related, only having one negative comment. So, you know, it seemed to me, it seemed to us that most of the people were behind this and recognized the importance of this area. This is just a bigger map showing public land ownership in the general area. So you can see the Forest Service is the green. They have a bunch of stuff here in the Ozarks, a bunch of stuff on the Shawnee Hills. Fish and Wildlife is the yellow. We got some stuff down through here, Crab Orchard, Mingo, if any of you have been there. Corps owns some, the state owns some. So there's, you know, a variety of public ownership in this area, but not a lot of it inside this polygon along the river. Most of it's up in the hills. And future plans, you know, right now, so the city is in the process of deeding a section of property to Fish and Wildlife. So it's not the levee protected stuff, it's the unprotected. So we will have a presence in St. Gen here in the near future. That should be completed by the end of this year. No problem. So some of the goals we talked about was better trails, better access to the river, sight lines to the river, so people can, you know, see the river. You're so close to it, but, you know, getting access to it can be hard, especially, you know, south between St. Louis and Cairo. There's not a lot of great places where you can go to Chester and, you know, see it right there, but, you know, it's all the industry right there. So it's not pristine as for the river. You know, for birding opportunities, basically getting people outside and you know, you're this close to town. You got the Park Service here now too, so that's bringing in people. You know, give them a chance to get out and enjoy nature. Go ahead. And then kind of wrapping it up, and I'm going to give it back to John. So, you know, how can we work together? You know, support Fish and Wildlife, or support your state agencies, or, you know, show up to public meetings if we have them. Voice your opinion. Whether you like what we're doing or not, we want to know, because it may very well direct how we do things. We're going to continue to promote usage of the levee. You know, get out there and enjoy what you got. And we have a lot more too, not necessarily in St. Gen, but and if you ever want to know, have any questions or want to know or want to talk to me about going different places, feel free to stop by and ask, or give me a call. Holding more bird walks. We've done a few there. Like I said, there was one this morning.
And there's one scheduled on Sunday morning, June 9th, in conjunction with the French Heritage Festival.
I put developing Friends of the Mississippi River. So basically, that's a group of an entity that can lobby on our behalf, and where I can't do that. But basically, that's still a ways away, but we're already kind of going in that direction. And then in any educational approach, I'm a one-person band down here right now. We have 3 other employees. They're all 3 north of St. Louis. So I do what I can, but if there's great opportunities that y'all know of with local schools or Boy Scout groups or whatever, I'm definitely willing if it works out with my schedule. I have kids of my own, and like telling people, I ran straight from baseball practice to here. So as opportunity presents itself, you know, I'm here now, so I can definitely do those sort of things. And then you know, this is the stuff I enjoy. And if you get out and you get to see stuff like whooping cranes, most people go their whole life and never see a whooping crane.
In 2016, at Christmas time, we had a flood, and I went down to Kaskaskia just to see, after the floodwaters went down, just to see what had happened. And lo and behold, here are these whooping cranes doing their dance in a puddle. And one of them has continued to come back every year, and this year was his last.
Yeah. So there's how many? Is it 600 in the world? And
at one time they were down to like just a few dozen in the wild. They were severely, their numbers were way down. And there was a program with those planes that would show them how to migrate south. They had discontinued that the year before these guys showed up. And they were supposed to follow adult poopers to Florida from Wisconsin, and they didn't. They ended up in Kaskaskia and then continued to come back to Kaskaskia.
And this was the fourth or fifth year in a row the pair came. They had a chick 2 years ago that survived and followed them down. But like I said, they've been there every year since. It was a pair this year. They lost their chick early on, but the male died on Kaskaskia this year. This late winter, early spring. The female successfully made it back to Wisconsin. So I was telling her earlier, maybe she'll find a boyfriend and come back. We'll find out this coming winter. And then this, I believe John took this picture, is a huge amount of pelicans sitting there on one pond. When they do that, they'll get in there and they'll swim a lot of times in connection with each other, basically pushing fish to the edge and then just scoop them all up. We've had snowy owl sightings down here. We've,
Fulvous duck,
whistling duck. Some of the other rare birds I've seen, not necessarily in this part of right here, but we've had Eurasian widgeon show up one time. So you get to see all kind, even if it's a local stuff, something that's around all the time, you'd see some pretty cool stuff out there. So, and encourage everyone. So, do you have anything to add before we do that?
I just want to say a couple things real quick. I really appreciate the way the Fish and Wildlife Service has worked with us. It's really been encouraging. They're accessible, they're cooperative, and they're helpful. And you can already see what they've done. They don't even own an acre yet, but they've helped us with the signs, and they help us with programs, and we really appreciate it. We think they're going to be a good partner for the community. And that will increase our stature, because we'll have the National Park Service here. As you know, we've got state fishing game lands in St. Genevieve County out of Pickle Spring and elsewhere. And we've got a state park, also a beautiful one, at Haunt. So our heritage is a rich one. It includes these ancient buildings and this wonderful cultural heritage, but it also includes wildlife. That's what brought a lot of people here in the first place. That was connected to Audubon's interest in this area, and I just think we can help fill out the picture. We can welcome our visitors, and we want to do that, and we want to make it comfortable and enjoyable for them. But I think even more important is this opportunity Jared mentioned about educating our children. Let them know that they live in a special place and that they're on the verge of a very important corridor that's important for wildlife and natural history, as well as cultural history and our architectural legacy, which is it all fits together. So that's all I wanted to say.
Any questions, comments?
Have you seen many of the white pelicans
This year,
migrating through?
I've seen a couple groups.
Not like last year. I saw 2 of them out on the river. There was a pair of them, and I got out there and I looked upstream, and they were floating in the middle of the channel, and they just floated. It took them 20 minutes. They floated all the way down, all the way past. But that picture, I don't know if you can see it. There's over 1,000 pelicans in that raft. I'd never seen that many in one.
Was that in the fall?
That was September.
Yeah, so you'll see that a lot more in the fall when they're coming south.
And that's really close to the bridge as you go over to Cascade.
And I've seen them in the sky going past St. Genevieve. No, they do this every year, twice.
Derek, I just wondered if the Nature Conservancy has been any help at all, because they do acquire land that they find ecologically important.
I didn't talk about it, but TNC and DU so Nature Conservancy and Ducks Unlimited are our 2 most helpful partners when it comes to land acquisition. And we're focusing on right now there's a big focus, y'all know where the Dogtooth Bend area is, down in Alexander County, Illinois. The levee breached, it's not being fixed. FEMA came in, and then NRCS came in and started just buying out the farmers because it dumped a whole lot of sand on them. Most of their ground was not farmable anymore. So basically it was giving them an out to go, here's some money for this, you can't farm it anymore, go buy something else somewhere that's farmable.
If you know where Charleston, Missouri is, it's right across the river from Charleston.
And so once NRCS has done that, and we're talking about 6,000 to 8,000 acres, TNC and DU are coming in and buying the residuals off the landowners. So NRCS came in and bought easements on it. TNC and DU are coming in and buying the residuals, holding them until we can get the funding to purchase that ground. So yeah, TNC is a huge partner of ours.
Oh, great.
And they move way faster than we're the government. We don't do anything fast. And so we miss out on a lot of opportunities because it takes us so long to do anything. So when you have partners, and there's other ones as well, but when you have partners like that can go in and buy the ground real quick and then hold it for a year and a half till we can purchase it, it provides much more opportunities for habitat restoration or eventual income.
One thing I want to say on behalf of our farmers, he's not after the good farm ground. He's after the low ground, the batur. He used the word batur. I'm not sure everybody knows what that means. It's the low ground next to the river itself that floods a lot of times anyway. Like this ground, our city ground, it's outside the levee, so it's dry now, but it can get underwater pretty quick and pretty frequently. So it's the marginal ground that's not marginal for wildlife, but it's marginal for other kinds of economic activity.
Right, exactly.
What's the status on the trumpler swans? It's been a while since I've been like the Riverlands, but years back, it's like, man, they were making an awesome comeback. Is that still going on pretty good?
I believe so. So we have, it's called our Del Air unit. It's in Pike County, Illinois, just across from Louisiana, Missouri. And we had 1,800 in one count this year in one spot.
That's awesome.
It's amazing to see. We actually had the International Swan Symposium a couple years ago. Was in St. Louis. And we had tour buses go out there and look, and they was like, we've never seen this. Like, so I'm assuming they're doing good. I'm assuming they're doing some loud, annoying when they get together. But beautiful to see too.
Well, thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm in St. Mary's, or St. James, so.
Jared, Mary Lee, thank you so much. Appreciate it. We have our next presentation, Carolyn Bott.
This is his. I'll give to you.
1:10 or so. Give you a few minutes to stretch your legs. We need to set up her presentation.